Hey, you're listening to Ty Bollinger of CancerTruth.net. You're also listening to Justin and Kate with Extreme Health Radio. These guys are great. Enjoy listening to them. I always do.
Welcome to Extreme Health Radio. Extreme Health Radio.
Where natural solutions to almost every health condition are out there. Join us on our journey to find them.
Now here are your hosts,
Broadcasting from sunny Southern California around the world.
Justin and Kate Stellman.
Well, I just had a green juice from my wife, Kate. Thank you very much.
You are very welcome.
There is no better way to start the morning than a fresh green juice.
That is a good way to get this rainy day going.
A little astaxanthin and some B17 for breakfast.
Better than aspartame. Which we will be delving into that world shortly.
We will be delving into the world of aspartame. So thank you, Kate.
You are very welcome.
For that green juice. That was great.
You're
breakfast.
welcome.
We are, like she said, going to be talking about aspartame today with Dr. Betty Martini. We'll introduce her in just a moment. It's going to be really, really fascinating show. My name is Justin, and this is my wife,
Kate. Hello, everyone.
And we are broadcasting worldwide from Southern California. And it's a cloudy day here, but hopefully the sun will come out. Just for reference, today is Monday, August 19th, 2013. And this is episode number 142. So if you want to leave a comment or if you would like to check out the show notes, just go to our website.com/142 and you'll be able to check it out there. And also, if you'd like to join us on Facebook, we'd love to have you a part of our community. Lots of people have been joining lately. It's been a lot of fun. And we just love interacting with everyone. You keep up to date with our shows. You can do that at extremehealthradio.com/Facebook, and you can click the like button on there and be a part of what we're doing. It'd be great to have you part of what we're doing. So also, if you would like to join the show, there's a number of different ways you can do that. One way, the obvious way, is to email us, Justin at extremehealthradio.com.
Or Kate, Kate, at extremehealthradio.com.
Another thing you can do is send a voicemail right from your computer for any guest or for us. You can just go to extremehealthradio.com/voicemail and you can record right from your computer. We'll play it on the air. So that's a great feature of our website. Please take advantage of that if you can. And let's see here. We've got a great show schedule coming up. Lots of great guests, a lot of eclectic guests coming up. Let's see, the next guest we're going to have on is Astaria Venus.
Oh, right.
And she'll be talking about healing with sound. So that should be very, very interesting. And then we have Ty Bollinger, and he'll be talking about natural cancer treatments. And then we have Dr. Wilson, and he's going to be on talking about nutritional balancing, blood testing, hair analysis, and all of that kind of good stuff. And he's a really fascinating guy. But today, all we have is today, right?
All we have is today. And I'm excited about today.
Yeah, we have a really amazing guest, Dr. Betty Martini. And her website is, the name of her website is Mission Possible World Health Institute. So it's M as in Mary, PWHI, mpwhi.com, Mission Possible World Health Institute. And she has been researching aspartame and a lot of these issues like fluoride, MSG, all this toxicity that's going on, but more specifically aspartame for 40 years. So she's really been in the trenches with this stuff. And last night I was watching a little bit of this documentary called Sweet Misery, and we'll post it on this show page so all of you guys can check that out. But I wanted to thank you, Dr. Martini, for being on the show today.
Well, I'm delighted to be with you.
Excellent, excellent. So you are in, what city did you say that was before the show, in Georgia?
I'm in Duluth. That's about 25 miles from downtown Atlanta.
Oh, okay, okay.
So basically, I live in Atlanta. It just keeps on going.
Wow. So you have been there doing your thing your whole life, or have you moved around? Or?
Well, I've lived here most of my life. I did go to Philadelphia for about a year when I was at Franklin. And then I married and moved to New Jersey and worked at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center. But that was a long time. Then I came back to Atlanta. Everybody comes back to Atlanta.
Can't shake it, huh?
I see.
I love it.
So how did you first get involved? Did you get involved specifically with aspartame when you first got started, or was it other issues?
Well, I've been doing this 20 years, and when I first got started, I was retirement age when I got started, and never thought that 20 years later I would still be doing this, but it was done because a friend of ours was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he couldn't get near him. His arms and legs would kick out. He had a hard time speaking, and at the time there was another doctor visiting me, and he says, find out if he's using NutraSweet. So I decided to call the world expert, Dr. Roberts. And Dr. Roberts said, well, he's probably drinking a Diet Coke with his L-Dopa, and it interacts. And I said, well, Dr. Roberts, if it interacts with drugs, it's not an additive. He says, you're right. So anyway, I read his first book and found out about MS and seizures, and I'd get people off of it and then walk out of their wheelchair, or their seizures would stop. And finally, I called him back and I said, Dr. Roberts, are we talking about a global plague? He says, yes, we are. I'm sorry to say that Dr. Roberts died in February, but he left me all his records. So that we have everything. I sure miss him. But anyway, the man he got off of the Diet Coke. He was doing exactly what Dr. Roberts said. And as soon as he did that, all those motions disappeared. Think of Michael Fox, Diet Pepsi spokesman. The arms moving around. It's drug interaction. And because it was everywhere in other countries, my husband is a minister, but he had his own company because, freely you receive, freely give. And so he had sold his company. He was going to show me the world, and he said, well, we can see it or save it. And so he used his retirement funds to set up Mission Possible International. And then we got people from other countries, got it translated into their language so that we could warn people all over the world. And the more that came out, the worse it got of the power of these people.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was watching some of that Sweet Misery last night, and they were talking about how there's, what was it, about in 1983, there was Americans consumed 6.9 million pounds of this aspartame because...
Well, it's addictive. First of all, it's methanol is classified as a narcotic. It causes chronic methanol poisoning. This affects the dopamine system of the brain and causes the addiction. And that's why they don't want to take it off the market. It's a cash cow, although they've admitted now. In fact, wasn't so criminal, it'd be funny. But Coke has just put out a campaign to say aspartame is safe, and that just opens them up to why it's not safe.
Oh, yeah.
But I think what happened was that on Coke's 100-year anniversary, I went down through a proxy and got to speak, and I held up Dr. Roberts' 1,000-page medical text and said, now we have a global plague of aspartame disease, but it was in front of 1,000 stockholders. And I'm sure that, they probably questioned him on it. And so Coke maybe is doing it for their stockholders to try to, say it was safe. It never was safe. In the beginning, the FDA tried to indict the manufacturer, and both U.S. prosecutors hired on with the defense team, and statute of limitations expired. So then they revoked the petition for approval. I mean, the whole history is like that, the investigations. But G.D. Searle had hired Don Rumsfeld to get it on the market, and he said, I'll call in my marketers and do it. Well, President Reagan really, I guess, got it approved when it really comes down to it. But he wrote an executive order making the FDA powerless to have anything to do with aspartame until a new FDA commissioner was there, which takes about 30 days. And, of course, that was Arthur Hull Hayes. He came in there and revoked the petition for approval. They called Dr. Goyen, the transition team, at 3 in the morning and fired him. I even have a letter from his wife. So this is how it got on the market. It was not approved by science. It was approved by political chicanery.
Isn't that crazy how it's so interesting how all the major political players are always involved? You know, you got Reagan and Rumsfeld, and without them, something like this may not have been able to be passed.
I know. That's what I went to see Jerome Bressler. He just passed too, but he's the one that wrote the famous Bressler report. And he says this was done by the president. In other words, whatever the marker was, there have been articles that stated that he was supposed to nominate Rumsfeld for vice president. Instead, he used Bush. So he thought he owed him a favor. And that's probably why he did this.
Wow, that's crazy. So, I mean, all of us have known people that have been coke addicts and junkies of this stuff. And what actually is aspartame? Because I think on that documentary it talked about how it really didn't become popular until 1983. But is that true? And then what's in it? What actually is aspartame?
It reminds me of talking to some sick person down at the aspartame factory in Augusta here. I said, this is before I knew. And I said, well, you're taking it and you're sick. Tell me what it's made out of. He says, I don't know, lady. All we have down here is toxic waste.
Oh.
Wow.
So, as it turns out, it was, it's genetically engineered with E. coli bacteria.
Okay.
So, it's nasty stuff.
Is it?
And Dr. Deagle wrote about that. But you've got 40% of aspartic acid, which is an excitotoxin and stimulates the neurons of the brain to death, causing brain damage. And then you've got 50% phenylalanine as an isolate. That much floods the brain, becomes neurotoxic. And it is bound with methanol, which is a severe metabolic poison. Now, this will probably interest you because you're in California, I believe.
Uh-huh.
It's that Proposition 65 have, as of July 1st, put a safe dose of methanol in California. And this is 23 milligrams per day. But based on the ADI of aspartame is 15 times that amount.
Whoa.
Wow, we're in a world of trouble, aren't we?
Yeah, that's not good.
And then that turns to formaldehyde, and then if that's not bad enough, the molecule breaks down to DKP, diketopiperazine, a brain tumor agent.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you. So all of these chemicals are one thing when you take them, but when you put them in the body, they actually transform to other things?
Yeah, the Traco study done in Barcelona showed that the formaldehyde embalms living tissue, and it turns the tissue to plastic. Wow. So this is, that's how serious it is, but that is probably one of the most damaging studies on it. And when I went to see Dr. Alemany, before he said, hello, I'm Dr. Alemany, he said, Betty, aspartame is going to kill 200 million people. And I personally believe it is because they don't correlate everything. There's damage to the mitochondria having to do with why they interact with drugs. So you've got people dying of drug interactions, all the cancers. There's been 4 studies since 2005 about cancer, and they're all saying that it's a multi-potential carcinogen. Interesting is that Harvard did one. And, Harvard is very well thought of. And when I first read it, it said this is the longest and the strongest on cancer. And then immediately following that, there was a note put out that they apologized for promoting this study. It was weak science. I would say that as soon as it got out, the manufacturer got to them. But they already had a paper trail. They already had the record showing it the strongest and the longest.
Wow.
And after all, when it turns to formaldehyde in your body, what would you expect? Leukemia, lymphoma, and that's been found too by Dr. Sifredi. The first one found it to be a multi-potential carcinogen, and the second one he did showed that it causes breast cancer, and if a woman uses it during pregnancy, that child can grow up and have cancer. And then it showed the leukemia, the lymphoma, cancer of the lungs, cancer of the liver. I mean, it's a horrible thing. It's an abortifacient, and the most heinous crime of the FDA was making a deal with the manufacturer never to let anyone see the birth defect or teratology reports, and they hid them all these years, which is when I was talking to Bressler, he says, you've got to find them. They stripped them from my report. Well, now we have some of them, and what it showed is neurotube defects, dash autism. Now you know where the autism epidemic has come from, and they knew that all the way back then. In fact, on the website, mpwhi.com, you can read the famed Dr. Oni's testimony to the Board of Inquiry, and he says birth defects are a given.
That is amazing. So
I know.
What's going on with, I know that it's causing a lot of cancers. I've known people in my life that have had raging cancers, and one lady died, and she would drink a Pepsi, 4 or 5 of them every day for 30 years. But what's going on with the brain in this aspartame? Because it seems like all this stuff is kind of causing neurological disorders and things like that.
Yes. Yeah, it's a cytoneurotoxin, and it stimulates neurons of the brain to death. In fact, there was a study in Norway which showed that aspartame completely destroys the brain, but especially in the area of learning. And the movie that followed, the one that you saw, Sweet Remedy, interviews the ADD people, and they say before aspartame was approved, they hardly ever used the terms ADD and ADHD. And not only that, I don't think anybody today would do a study on children because we know what it does to them, but Dr. Barrett did one in the Dominican Republic by accident, as he changed the diet of 360 children from milk to aspartame punch or something. And when he called me, he says, these kids, they just all at one time, they're hyperactive and behavioral problems, all these different things. And if it was just a few, but it's almost all of them. And I said, well, get those children off of it. And he said a few days later, they all reverted back to normal. Now, look at what the dairy people have petitioned the FDA to allow 17 dairy products with less labeling. And then the FDA says the public is confused. Actually, the FDA is confused. They're supposed to be there to protect us. What they're going to do if something says chocolate milk and something about it, they're going to take that off so it will only say chocolate milk. Why? Because they know if it's, like sugar-free or anything like that, people are going to know what it is and not use it. So they're just taking away the labeling.
Wow,
and that's really a crime.
We're going to take a little break here. This is just amazing. And, when we get back from the break, I had a couple questions I wanted to ask you about pregnancy and if women, take aspartame during pregnancy, what happens. But then I also was curious, all the products that this stuff is in, and I think it'll shock a lot of people. So we'll talk about that with Dr. Betty Martini. Great website. Make sure to go visit her website, M as in Mary, mpwhi.com, Mission Possible World Health Institute, mpwhi.com. And we'll be back with Dr. Betty Martini, right after this break. So there's no real way to avoid toxins or chemicals in our daily life. It seems like we're exposed to them no matter what we do in our lives, from paint fumes to mercury fillings, coal-fired plants, perfumes, soaps, off-gassing of carpets in our houses, and genetically modified foods, and foods that are sprayed with pesticides and herbicides, the xenoestrogens in plastics and car exhaust, secondhand smoke, even your dry cleaning and laundry detergents, even your mattresses have chemicals inside them that outgas. So getting these toxins and chemicals and poisons out of your bloodstream and out of your fat cells is going to be really critical moving forward in our society, because it seems like every year there's more and more chemicals that keep becoming introduced with new products in the market. So I would consider getting one of these far infrared saunas. We've got a great sauna developed by Phil Wilson, and I've known about his work for many, many years, and I'm so proud to be offering his sauna on our website. And he's been in this business since 1975. And this sauna is really great because it slows the aging process. It helps with weight loss and burning calories. I think you can burn like 600 calories in 15 or 20 minutes, and it helps to cleanse the skin. It improves your sleep and helps to prevent illnesses like flus and colds, as well as energizing the body. And it's great for improving blood circulation and promoting cellular renewal, as well as increasing metabolism and inducing profuse sweating. And it's really, really great. And the great thing is you don't produce any lactic acid. So you can sweat without producing any of this lactic acid that you would normally produce if you lifted weights or went for a big long run. So if you're interested in this, you can check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna. It's great because it sets up in about 2 to 5 minutes, and it's portable, and it's super easy to clean. It's got low electromagnetic field radiation coming off of it, and it produces energy and heat inside the sauna evenly. It's great machine. So if you're interested in sweating like this for only 15 minutes a day, it's great. It requires 0 preheating. It's got a 1-year warranty, and Phil Wilson is a great guy. We're so proud to be offering his saunas on our website. So if you're interested, check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna, or you could check it out in our store, and it's $990 plus $25 shipping. And that's really a good deal because many of the saunas out there, you can check them out. They're in the thousands of dollars, $2,000 to $4,000. So this is great. You can buy it through PayPal. You don't even need a PayPal account. It's 100% secure. So consider doing this if you're interested in living a long, healthy, disease-free life. So check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna.
100% listener supported. Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide.
Don't forget to join our thriving community for health tips, inspiration, and show updates
At extremehealthradio.com/Facebook.
All right, thank you so much, everyone, for being on this show. And if you have a comment about this show after you're listening to the recording, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/142 and make a comment at the bottom of the page and join the community that way and interact with everyone. Having a really interesting talk here with Dr. Betty Martini.
Pretty eye-opening. I mean, I know we've all heard of aspartame and things like that, but I guess I had no idea all that it was in, and all the sneaky ways they're trying to get around labeling and changing products without us knowing. And
well, it's interesting because for us, we don't really eat, we eat more whole foods, and we don't eat any packaged things.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's not really a problem, but for other people, that's the whole thing, is our family and friends and things.
I know. I hope people listen.
Yeah.
Hope everyone we know listens to this interview.
Right. And I wanted to also say, you guys, don't forget to check out that sauna. That is just a top-of-the-line sauna. I use it, and Kate uses it every single day, probably 6 days a week. And it's just an amazing machine. So
we love it.
Don't forget to check out that sauna to sweat out toxins. Lots of good stuff. And also, if you would like to follow us on Facebook, like the lady said, We'd love to have you a part of our community. So just go onto that website, extremehealthradio.com/Facebook, and click like, and you can join the community that way. And let's see, is there anything else to cover? I don't think so. Kate, I think you had a question about pregnancy or something.
Yeah, I was curious. Dr. Martini, during the break, I was thinking, I know a lot of people, sadly, a lot of clients of mine that come in every day, first thing in the morning with a Coke in their hand, and it just makes my stomach churn. But a lot of those women are pregnant women, and I know not only are they drinking things like Coke and things like that, but I'm sure they're getting in a lot of packaged foods that they don't suspect that it's in or don't care. From your standpoint and your research, have you found that the higher the amount that people consume during pregnancy, the more problems there are, or is it just an occasional person might have just as many problems if they're only doing it on occasion versus an everyday consumption of this product?
Aspartame is cumulative.
Okay.
In fact, I wrote an article for the National Health Federation, No Safe Dose of Aspartame. So it really doesn't matter from that standpoint. But from the standpoint of fertility, it hits the public in so many different ways. Like, I was on a radio program one day, and I mentioned that aspartame changes the menses and causes infertility. Then if the person gets off of it, then it's a teratogen, and it causes birth defects and mental retardation. So then there was a study in Japan that showed basically the same thing about infertility in the man. And Dr. Roberts always pointed out that it didn't make any difference whether it was the woman using it or the man. If the man is using it at the time of conception, then he says that it can cause birth defects in his own child. So anywhere in the fertility area is these problems, and also the fact that aspartame is so deadly to the newborn. And if you really want a lot of information, you can go to the front of the website under Report for Schools and Pediatricians, and I had all the different doctors write a paper on how it destroys their brains. And it'll tell you about feeding. In other words, the child's feeding at its mother's breast, and she's using free methadone. So it gets right through to the child. Now, Dr. Blaylock, a neurosurgeon, wrote a book, Cytotoxins, The Taste That Kills, and he says sometimes you won't see the problem until puberty in the way of behavioral problems and dyslexia and things like that. But he does tell you something to do for the kids, what you can give them to try to make it better for them in case they're going to have any problem at all. So it's a good thing to know that.
Yeah.
So at the end of the show, we'll talk a little bit about some alternatives, to aspartame, some natural sweeteners, as well as maybe get a list of your favorites and then ways to detox. But with this aspartame thing, I mean, for us, like we were just saying, coming back from the break, it's not so much a problem for us. But, if you think about all the Cokes and things we used to eat growing up as kids, we'll talk about how to detox that out if possible. But with our family and friends, and I'm sure with you, Dr. Martini, with your family and friends that just aren't as switched on, this stuff is in almost just every package or processed food, it seems like, doesn't it?
Yes, and the last count I got on a report was 14,000.
Oh.
And one of the worst will be your gum. And Dr. Roberts wrote a paper on it. He said that the gum goes through saliva straight to the brain. And now, let's see, I think all but 2 of Wrigley's gums have not only aspartame, but sucralose, which is just chlorinated sugar, and potassium, another one, and that one caused cancer and leukemia in original studies. So no matter what they did, it's compounded. Like Dr. Bowen said one day, he said if they get off aspartame and get on Splenda, what's going to happen, is that they'll maintain the reactions of aspartame and pick up those of Splenda. So in the meantime, someone contacted me that I've known who grows herbs in the Amazon rainforest, and I explained to him, what do we refer people to?
Mm-hmm.
So they made one, and it's called Just Like Sugar. And it is made out of chicory, which has been used for diabetics to improve health for like 70 years. And there have been no reactions at all. In fact, Dr. Blaylock asked that it be analyzed, and it was. There's vitamin C in it from organic oranges, and let me see, vitamin C and chicory. So at least there is something safe, and they've made hot chocolate, and you just can't imagine drinking a cup of hot chocolate and it tastes like a candy bar because there's no chemicals in it.
Right.
Wow. So you said it's in like 14,000 products. Now I'm sure that's just brands, and those brands each have hundreds of products themselves.
Oh, you're right about that. But I'm sure that it's in more than what they say it is, because there's a woman in prison, Diane Fleming. Her husband died of aspartame. They put her in prison for 30 years. So
what was that about? What was that about?
Well, he was an athlete. Dr. Blaylock has written an athlete alert because when they run, they deplete serotonin, and anyway, it causes sudden cardiac death, and we have that on the website.
Oh, yes.
You know, it depletes. Yeah.
Wow. So
anyway,
a lot of these athletes are dropping dead from what they think are just random heart attacks, but these people are probably kids, and they're eating a lot of this aspartame. Then.
Yes, that's it.
Wow, that's crazy. Because I know when I was growing up, we had a guy named Hank Gathers and another Boston Celtic basketball player, Reggie Lewis, I think his name was, and a lot of these athletes, a lot of high school kids are dropping dead from football workouts.
But that's what the doctors believe that is happening. And if you go to the website and click on sudden cardiac death, you'll see it all explained by the really top authorities. And then they did another study showing that it causes heart attacks and strokes. So you can't get away from it. Somebody have a heart attack, they don't know it or why, and they don't even say anything about aspartame. Ask them if they're using it when anybody using aspartame will interact with all cardiac drugs.
Is aspartame in like table condiments? Because I know when you go to restaurants and they give you those little packets of sugar, I wouldn't touch those. I suspect it's in there, but is it in things like ketchup and condiments like that, do you think?
Well, we have no way of knowing it. If they want to hide it, it goes under artificial and natural flavors. And that's where they put MSG and aspartame and things that they don't want you to know about.
So whenever you see artificial flavors, then you know you're in trouble.
And you got to run the other way.
Actually, I called Mars, and for some reason they told me. I said, which products has aspartame? And she was talking about the Mars bar. I said, well, I don't see anything on it that says contains aspartame, and so he said it's under natural flavors.
Really?
And they're giving those things to kids.
So you called Mars, and that's what they told you?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? So under the guise of natural flavors, I guess that's just an umbrella for anything.
Right.
Because I've read some books in the past where they make these natural flavors in these chemical plants up in New Jersey, and each natural flavor, like red dye number 3, could contain upwards of 70 different chemicals. I mean, and that's just the one dye that's under the natural flavors, let alone MSG and aspartame, and it's just crazy.
It's an interesting thing that Dr. Verrett, the FDA toxicologist at the time, wrote a book, Eating May Be Hazardous to Your Health, and mostly she talks about those, all those, the red dye and the blue dye, and they are so seriously carcinogenic that the FDA can't say that they don't cause cancer. So they're, what they do is they just postpone. And I asked, let me see, I got one article that was very, very old, and it said that the FDA had postponed having to do with the red and the blue dye for 27 times. And that's the problem. If they don't want to deal with it, they just postpone it. You know, it's like I filed a citizen's petition for a ban in 2002, and this is 2013, and the only thing they've done is sent me a letter saying that we have more important things to do. And yet that citizen's petition for ban is there's a law. You're supposed to answer it in 180 days. And, of course, they haven't. And then an attorney said, file an imminent health hazard. They have to answer in 7 days. Well, I did that in 2007. And then a couple of years later, I get a call from the FDA. And I told him, I said, look, people are sick and dying all over this world because I lecture all over the world. And he said, so what? We have to depopulate. That's the message from the FDA.
He said that to you?
He did, yes.
Oh, my gosh. That is crazy. He actually admitted that.
That's why you have to take responsibility for what you do, and why we spend all our time educating the public is because they have no idea how poisonous this stuff is.
So is it just a monetary thing? Is it just money? Is it cheaper? Why are they using that instead of other sweeteners, do you think?
Well, profit, addiction, and greed. But I tell you, why they haven't taken it off the market is that it's, let me see how many years, I think it was 1999 that there was an operation called Return to Eden. And they asked for 16 of the worst reports, like the one that says it was listed with the Pentagon in an inventory of prospective biochemical warfare weapons submitted to Congress. And they gave them out, you know, by the thousands and thousands. And 60 days later, the owner called me. She said, do you have any idea what is going on down here? I said, yes, I think I do. I opened the door, and a lady fell into my arms and said I was blind, and now I can see. And that's what the doctor here at the Atlanta Eye Hospital had said, you know, that if it's in the wet stage, you can regain your sight. They took that all the way to the Supreme Court. But what she was saying, that all these people who had been going from doctor to doctor to doctor just woke up well. They saw the report and got off of it. And she said people with fibromyalgia could walk. MS patients were walking out of wheelchairs. Now, if they take this off the market, everybody will know they've been mass poisoned. And that's what Dr. Bowen told the FDA, that aspartame was mass poisoning of the American public and more than 70-plus countries of the world. And I think it's over 100 now.
I don't like to get too conspiratorial, but I wonder if there's also other issues going on too, because that FDA person told you about depopulate. You know, I wonder if, you know, there's that issue that you talked about where they just don't want to pull it off because everyone will uncover it. Basically, the lie will be uncovered, but then I wonder if they really do want to do any kind of damage or do want to drug the population. Do you think there's anything there?
And the vaccinations, too. Dr. Blaylock, if you ever want to have him on, he's wonderful, and he'll explain all the dangers. And, for instance, he sent me a report a few years back about, they said, first vaccinate, you know, women and pregnant women, and he says if they take the vaccination, they're going to lose their baby, they're going to miscarry. And sure enough, I put out what Dr. Blaylock asked me to, the information to get out, and then there was a lot of them that read it, had already been vaccinated, and within 3 or 4 days had lost their babies.
Oh, Wow.
So real abortifacient, but I don't know if they were using aspartame, but the vaccination alone was causing that.
Wow. That's just crazy. We got to take a little break here, but that is just amazing. You know, when you think about how this is happening in our society, it's just absolutely crazy.
Right in front of our eyes.
Right in front of our eyes, and just crazy. So if you're interested in this issue, or if you know of anyone who is, taking a lot of, or I should say, consuming a lot of beverages like Coke and Pepsi and these types of things, pass this show on to them, because it really could save their life if they end up getting off of aspartame and all of that. So don't forget to check out Dr. Betty Martini's website, mpwhi.com, and we'll be right back with Dr. Betty Martini right after this break. It was really cool. A while back, we had Deborah Lynn Dad on our show, and that was episode number 45. She's kind of like the queen of detoxification and getting toxins and chemicals and poisons and drugs out of your body and out of your home. She has a really, really great website. And again, that was extremehealthradio.com/45, her interview that we had. And she turned us on to a really cool product. It's a natural zeolite, which is pretty amazing, actually. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, you could check it out at extremehealthradio.com/zeolite. That's ZEOLITE. That will redirect you to this really cool product that she turned us on to. And I talked with her at length about it, and I've been doing a lot of research about it. And zeolites are adsorptive, so they're positively charged, and they bind to anything that's negatively charged, which is like toxins and poisons and chemicals and all these things that we're exposed to. And what they do is they just pull them out of your bloodstream. The size of the zeolite molecule is really important too. So the smaller the size, the more powerful and the more toxins it's going to grab onto and flush out of your body. And this one I think is 0.03 microns, which is really, really small. I think it's the smallest in the industry from what I've learned and from what I've researched. So it's really, really a cool product. And if you're living in the modern world and want to get these heavy metals and toxins and poisons out of your bloodstream, check it out, extremehealthradio.com/zeolite. And it's about, I think, $24 per month for a bottle. And it's really a great way to get rid of these toxins and poisons out of your bloodstream and capillaries and out of the cells and all that kind of stuff. And we really, really liked the product and spoke with the company and trust Deborah. She's done a lot of great work. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, check it out, extremehealthradio.com/zeolite, or you can read about it more on our store as well. And thanks for listening, and let's get back to the show.
All free shows, all the time on Extreme Health Radio.
Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide.
Join our community today.
Sign up to our email list and instantly get our free gift to you, along with loads of inspirational content and cutting-edge tips to help change your life.
At extremehealthradio.com/subscribe.
All right, we're having a really, really, I guess I should say, eye-opening time here with Dr. Betty Martini.
Yeah, that's a good way to put that.
Very interesting stuff. And if you know of anyone who takes aspartame, or if they eat a lot of packaged foods and things with it in it, please pass this show on to them, extremehealthradio.com/142. And we've got about another 18 minutes left or so. And if you have a comment about any of this stuff, you can go on to our website /142, make a comment at the bottom of this show page if you have anything you'd like to say about it. And also, don't forget to check out those products that we talked about during the commercial, because they're great detox products. The sauna that we ran an ad for a few minutes ago, and now this zeolite. We did a whole show with Eddie Stone on this zeolite and detoxing this kind of stuff out. And so let's see, before the break, we wanted to focus a little bit on this segment, in this particular segment, about detoxification. And when I talk about detoxification, it's interesting because, a lot of times we'll sit in the sauna because we're exposed to chemicals that we get exposed to on a daily basis, trying to sweat those out. But it's also things that we have stored in our body, like aspartame, that we ate from drinking Cokes when we were 12,
Yeah.
So, Dr. Martini, what are some ways do you know of that people can detox these things out of their bodies?
Well, usually people will email me at BettyM19 at mindspring.com, and I have an aspartame resource guide, and I haven't put it on web yet. But it has Dr. Blaylock's detox and Dr. Caldwell's detox, and it's got just about everything you need to know what to do if you've used aspartame, plus all the medical books and movies and a history of how it got to market. I didn't know if I sent you one, but I will.
Yeah, and I would really appreciate that. Should we refer people to you, or should we post that on our website? Is that something that you would like to send people individually, or?
You can post it on your website. It really covers everything that they may ask. In other words, if you want to get aspartame out of your state, there's a bill that somebody's already written that you can see if it helps. I mean, we've tried to get aspartame out of New Mexico twice, and we've tried to get aspartame out of Hawaii twice. But, all the lobbyists come in and attorneys, and they just tell so many lies. It's terrible. But we did try twice in those two states.
Wow. So those, it makes sense. People want to hold on to their power and hold on to what they got going on. But can aspartame stay in your body for, like, I'm thinking, when I was a kid and I was 12 years old drinking Cokes, do I probably still have aspartame inside my body?
Well, you have to remember that formaldehyde is embalming fluid. So it I know I asked Dr. Blaylock once, and he said that you really can't get the formaldehyde out, and it's probably turns your tissues to plastic. And that's in the new book that was written by Dr. Monti, While Science Sleeps, A Sweetener Kills. And it's incredible, and he has a page or two on how it turns the tissues to plastic. In fact, you might want to interview him. I'll be glad to email you his address, but he has put the last chapter of that book online at www. While Science Sleeps, because it's on autism and explains the studies that were done back then that they wouldn't let the public see, and why we have this epidemic of autism.
Wow. So can you give the name of that website and his name as well as the name of the book as well?
The name of the book is, he uses WhileScienceSleeps.com to put the last chapter of the book online, is what he's doing. In fact, what we're going to do, Aspartame Awareness Week is the first week after Labor Day, and what we want to do is get people to understand this problem, and also Dr. Ralph Walton is doing a study on aspartame and birth defects, and we have a form on our page that you can fill out and send to Dr. Walton, anybody who has given birth after 1984. And that would be very helpful because we need to get it out to the public. And Dr. Walton did a study not too long, it's been some years now, but Monsanto, who owned it at the time, wouldn't even sell them the aspartame because this was going to be a study that was, didn't have any funding to it, that he was going to fund it. Well, there were so many. He didn't even use the maximum amount of aspartame, but there were so many that had bad reactions. The administrator took part in it, and he had a retinal detachment and lost his sight in one eye. Somebody else had a conjunctivitis and with bleeding. So the other people, he's a psychiatrist that had other compromised problems, said they were being poisoned, and the institution stopped the study.
That is crazy. And did you say that Monsanto wouldn't even sell the aspartame?
Yeah, wouldn't even sell the aspartame to him because they knew what would happen if it's an independent study, because what they do is they have their own flax.
Right.
And, there's a lot of people with their hand out. They want to say it's safe. That's about all they have to do, So, but Monsanto would not And
wow, for a second there, you start thinking, oh, wow, maybe Monsanto, they actually, don't want to sell the stuff, but they don't want to do that specifically because it's an independent study.
Well, yes, if it's not controlled or funded by them,
Right.
They don't want it. Look at all the cancer studies that have come out saying it's a multi-potential carcinogen, and not one of them has been accepted, even though it's the famed Ramazzini Institute in Italy, and they think up different things. We had to laugh the first time they did it. They said they wouldn't accept it because the rats died, and Dr. Safredi said, well, of course they did. It was a lifetime study, and respiratory disease is the dying process. Because they said, well, the rats have respiratory disease. Well, that's what happens when you die, and really made them look foolish. But they'll come up with just anything to have a rebuttal to proper independent studies.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's funny how when you start looking into this issue, we were talking a little bit before, like how you said this stuff is in 14,000 different brands, which is probably equates to possibly hundreds of thousands of different individual products. And it's just interesting, though, when you look at that issue, and then you also look at other things that happen in our lives. Like, I was just thinking about the Gulf War, syndrome and all that stuff. And, from what I understand, those soldiers were shipped over Pepsi and Coca-Cola, weren't they?
Diet. They didn't want any sugar. So that's the problem.
So they had these diet beverages and filled with aspartame. And do you think there's a correlation there between the Gulf War illness and all of that?
Of course.
Gosh, that's crazy.
Pretty frightening stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dr. Deagle even told me one day, he said, it's too late. He said there won't be a child born in the Western world that won't have some version of autism, maybe learning or behavioral problems. And on top of that, aspartame depletes serotonin and causes psychiatric and behavioral problems and interacts with all antidepressants. So in schools, they're medicating instead of educating. And if they're on aspartame, the drug is going to interact.
Wow. Do you know if it actually kills beneficial gut bacteria too, or no?
No, I don't. It may turn it to plastic. It turns the tissues to plastic.
That is just so crazy. So it actually interacts with the very medications that people are on because of originally taking the aspartame.
Yeah, it damages the mitochondria, and that's the power of the cell. And that's why it interacts with drugs. And, for instance, aspartame is a seizure-triggering drug, and it interacts with all anti-seizure medication. There is a doctor here who's a neurologist, and I was talking to him one day, Dr. Santes. It kept me, I think, till 9 o'clock at night. And he was telling me about a patient that was having seizures all day. So he put her in the hospital, he said, and then saw a case of Diet Coke under the bed. And he says, that's what's causing your problem. And he had used every single anti-seizure medication that was in the PDR, physician's desk reference, and nothing worked. And so when she got off of it, she just went crazy. So he said he put her in a mental hospital. And he said 2 weeks later, the mental problems had disappeared and the seizures stopped.
Wow. So is aspartame more or less dangerous, do you think, than something like MSG?
Well, they're called sisters. Okay. In other words, the aspartic acid in aspartame is an excitotoxin, so is MSG. So, and compounded, in fact, the report from Dr. Oni on our website, he tells how bad it is when they use MSG in aspartame because it has an additive and synergistic effect. And he was concerned what it would do to children and babies. It's almost 50 pages with graphs, and he's one of the most famed neuroscientists in the world today.
Oh my gosh. It's so crazy because you think about like the MSG, the aspartame, the fluoride. I mean, how do we have a fighting chance?
I know. I think on the Doorway website, dorway.com, you can go under their doctor page, and it will tell you about, especially under Dr. Blaylock, will tell you how it interacts with fluoride and other things, and vaccines. Aspartame is also an adjuvant, an immune stimulator, like they put in vaccines, and there were a couple of vaccines that actually had aspartame in it. They know exactly what aspartame does.
Wow.
Directly into the bloodstream.
That's amazing.
Yep.
So what are some alternatives to aspartame? Like, I know a lot of people take stevia. There's agave nectar, honey. What are some things that you think are good?
Well, since they made this product for us, we really tried it out, just like sugar, and it seems to be the best. Every time you find one, there may be one thing that you may not like. Like stevia, for instance, Dr. Blaylock says causes one of the diabetic reactions. Anyway,
a blood sugar imbalance.
Yes. So anyway, there is trouble, in many respects. And then, let's see, xylitol, they did a study at Duke, and it showed brain damage.
Oh,
for
xylitol.
Wow.
Yeah. So every time one comes out, we pass it through the experts to make sure it's okay, because we have to get people off of it. And they really need Dr. Blaylock's report. He tells you how to flush your whole system out with water and things you shouldn't take and things that you should. You'll see that on the aspartame resource guide.
Oh, okay, the resource guide. Okay, and you can email that to me perhaps after the show?
Yeah, sure. Hypoglycemia, that's what I was thinking of.
Oh,
okay. That stevia causes hypoglycemia.
So what do you think about those powdered white stevias? Do you think those are any good, or do you think they should be the green?
It's supposed to be, and I've talked to some experts on this, if it's green stevia with no additives, it's safe. But, for instance, in Brazil, they add aspartame to it. So it's all a matter of looking on the label, and if it's got a bunch of names, you don't know how to pronounce them and know what they are, don't use it. Like Dr. Roberts said, when in doubt, throw it out.
Wow. So is it possible, now with this gets into the labeling a little bit, and we talked briefly on it, and I know we have a couple more minutes to go, but with the labeling, is it possible that there can be items that you get in the store that have ingredients like aspartame, but it's not even labeled in terms of having it say natural sweeteners?
Yes, I was telling you about Diane Fleming, there was some menthol in the Gatorade.
Oh, right.
And he had put 3 times the amount of creatine in it. He was an athlete, and we couldn't figure out where the menthol came from. And then somebody from GNC called me because I had written about them, their patent with both in it, they would interact. And he said, aspartame's been in there from the beginning. I said, well, it's not labeled. And he said, well, there's not that much, so we didn't label it. So in the meantime, that menthol came up, and she ended up 30 years in prison.
Oh, my gosh. That's crazy. So they could actually put things, because I'm worried about the stevia. I take some of that white stevia sometimes, and I should probably switch over to the green stevia always.
Yeah, yes. I've always asked the experts, and that's what they told me. The green stevia is pretty much okay.
Yeah, because the aspartame itself is like the white powdery kind of thing, and you couldn't mix that into the green stevias.
Well, I haven't seen it, but I've seen the product that they do have aspartame in. You wouldn't know it from looking at the bottle.
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's just crazy. So, what are some things? Just wrapping up here. What kinds of things are you working on these days?
Well, it's almost Aspartame Awareness Week now, and I'll be writing something I'll put on the list about birth defects and warning the public and how these records were kept from the public And then we want to find people that used aspartame after 1984 and ask them to fill out the form on the website. It's on the first banner. You can put it on your website if you like. And it's very simple. And then, let's see, what is Dr. Walton? You can send it straight to Dr. Walton. Anybody that fills it out, his email is rwalton193@aol.com.
How do you say his last name?
Walton.
Oh, R. Walton. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You might like him on your program too, since he did that study on aspartame.
I would love that. Perhaps after the show, I can talk with you further about that. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Martini, for shedding some light on this issue.
Very much.
Thank you.
So, aspartame.
Oh gosh.
What do you do after
Where
a
do
show
you
like
start?
that?
I know. You want to run for the hills.
Just run
with your
naked
stevia
through
packets.
the hills, throwing stevia packets at everybody. Oh my gosh.
Drop stevia packets from parachutes to the world.
Well, you know what? I am going to get off because I've done a little bit of that green stevia, but I need to make more of a point to do the green stevia.
You've been doing the white stevia?
Yeah. Got to get onto the green stevia. That is just amazing stuff because we don't eat really much packaged food, but I feel like whatever we do, we have to make sure that it's...
They're sneaky.
They are.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I don't like that they're making comments just totally out loud about depopulating and...
Isn't that
Gosh,
crazy?
these people they got issues.
Yeah, that is just... That's nuts. What... Did he just get done reading the Georgia Guidestones after he talked to her? Or what?
That's probably what's written on the Georgia Guidestones.
Man,
how to make aspartame and how to sneak it into all our food.
How to depopulate the earth.
Yeah.
Wow, that's just... It's crazy because you start thinking about, like I was talking about on the show, all these things that seemingly are just these random isolated cases, like, oh, so-and-so has seizures, or, oh, there's Gulf War syndrome, or, oh, autism. And we think they're all just kind of separate things, but if you follow the science back, all of these people were exposed and probably continually being exposed to aspartame.
Right.
But you think they're all different.
That's right. It has that in common, that's for sure.
Isn't that crazy?
I feel like during that program, I was thinking a lot about just everything is so opposite from what we've to what really is true. But growing up in things like, I remember, if you had a headache or an upset stomach, you drink a Coke. I mean, that's what your parents told you to do because it settled your stomach or it helps your headache go away.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and I know that people that still drink a caffeine, if they start getting a headache or a migraine, they go drink a Coke because they think that the caffeine's going to help kick in, and they think it works, but it's like, my gosh, not only does it not work, you're opening yourself to a myriad of other problems that no one knows.
How about that whole bit about how it's a formaldehyde and it turns your tissues to plastic?
Isn't that what those cherries are in that you put on sundaes? Is that formaldehyde?
Oh, yeah. Is that right?
I don't know.
They sit in some chemical, don't they?
I believe it's in there for sure.
Because those cherries...
Maraschino cherries.
Because they're not originally that
They don't even
red.
look like a cherry.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they don't.
No, I think there's formaldehyde in that. I could be wrong, but I believe it is, and that's just very scary.
And then there's aspartame probably in the actual ice cream that these people are eating too.
Oh, for sure. We're plasticizing ourselves inside.
Man. Wow.
It's disturbing.
So if this is not an argument to never going out to eat again, I don't know what is. Because, I have to say, for us, we don't go out to eat ever anymore.
No, we don't.
It's no fun, is it?
It's not fun. It's sad, but it's not fun. If you're worried the whole time or stressed about what you're eating,
yeah,
what it's fried and what's added to it, what's not real,
It's tough because at some point you have to just either go out and get over it and
in moderation, or
I suspect that the worrying is actually doing more damage than the actual chemicals or frying of food. If you're sitting there eating it in a state of fear and stress.
Yeah.
But man, like you said, we're talking a couple days ago about the canned food, and restaurants aren't making anything from scratch. So they're getting canned food that's pulling chemicals and toxins from the cans.
From a can.
Then they're cooking food in fluoridated municipal water, high in calcium. You know what I mean?
There's nothing that makes sense anymore about.
I mean, how could you? I mean, I guess you could go out to eat and just, no big deal. But I don't know.
Makes you think.
It does make you think.
Makes you want to make better choices.
If you have any questions or comments about this show, please put them in the box below, extremehealthradio.com/142. And think about doing some detoxes. She mentioned a detox resource guide that we're going to be getting from her. We'll post that on this particular page so you can get access to that. And think about doing the sauna and the zeolite and detoxing as much heavy metals and toxins and poisons as you can.
Yep.
Because stuff is bad, And we're not only detoxing stuff that we're exposed to on a daily basis now, but I mean, this is stuff that we have in our bodies probably have had for the last 20 years or so.
I think my 3rd grade birthday cake's still sitting there.
Oh my gosh. Probably in your liver somewhere.
Probably in my liver, in my colon, and throughout my body.
Ay. Okay, so anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this show. Please pass it on to your friends. Please share it on Facebook if you can. We love it when people share our stuff on Facebook. It's really a huge help. So please do that. That would be such a great help. And don't forget to check out those products too, the sauna and the zeolite. You can check those out. And we've got lots of great guests coming up. Astaria Venus, Healing with Sound. Ty Bollinger, alternative cancer treatments. And Dr. Wilson with nutritional blood hair analysis and blood testing and things. So don't forget to check out our upcoming show schedule.
Stay tuned,
and we are going to go
drink some aspartame-free smoothies.
I specifically remove the aspartame from my smoothies.
Yeah.
They're aspartame-free smoothies.
Yeah, just to clarify.
So thanks, guys, for listening, and if there's ever anything we can do for you, just let us know, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode.
It's time to go for now, but our mission does not end with this show.
Justin and Kate will be back with another interview packed full of ideas, discoveries, and unique ways to regain your health.
Head on over to extremehealthradio.com/subscribe and instantly download our free gift too that contains cutting-edge strategies to start making healthy lifestyle changes today.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even as you educate yourself in the field of live food nutrition and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers or listeners medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog and during this podcast is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any of the information on this podcast or in this blog, or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment or cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be construed as such. Always work with a qualified health practitioner or professional before making any changes to your diet, prescription drug use, lifestyle,